in New York with the idea of what is cloud computing. That was sort of the question. And then it sort of changed to, well, why should I do it? Why should I integrate cloud computing into our enterprise? Then after that, it kind of went to, well, okay, how should I do it? How should we do it? And there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that, and all these different debates about public, private, hybrid, etc. And now I think we're at the point where everyone's saying, okay, I did it. Now help me. Now what do I do? And the reality is that we have 150 different ways of looking at it this week. Over the next 3 days, we have 150 technical sessions along 10 different tracks. We also have a special Internet of Things boot camp going on, and we have a lot of very special speakers. Among those very special speakers is this morning we have Sandy Carter, who is the general manager of a cloud ecosystem at IBM. And what she's going to do is the absolute critical thing of lifting our heads up a little bit out of the details. Let's look at the bigger picture. Without the technology, we'd still be trying to start fires with sticks, and that's about as far as we get. But with the technology, we need people, and I think Sandy will tell you we need women. Welcome Sandy Carter to the podium, please.
Thank you, Roger. Well, good morning. Good morning. Roger told me to break a leg, so I did. So I'm so excited to see so many people here to learn about why we need more women and underrepresented minorities into the cloud area. But as you're here, if you're a dad of a daughter, can you raise your hand? Awesome. We're going to have some great tips that you can take back as well. If you are a manager or a leader, we're also going to talk about why this matters to you. Because having diversity in what you're doing around the cloud makes a huge difference for your innovation. So we're going to talk about why Geek Girls are chic, and we're going to talk about 5 career hacks that each one of you in this room and in the overflow rooms, as you guys take a look at your businesses, you can have a huge impact on what's going to happen with the next generation and this generation as well. As we're going through this, I would love for you to tweet this out. One of the hacks is going to be around raising the social media awareness of these issues. So my hashtag is up here. It's Sandy_Carter. So if you're tweeting this out, I'd love to see those as we go along. Okay? You guys ready? So here we go. When we start out looking at technology and math and computer science, when we start in kindergarten, we see the same ability across all different groups. But as we get to later years, we're going to see some changes, and I'm going to show you some numbers that to me are just tremendous aha moments of things that we've got to do as business leaders around the world to make a difference. Because this does, as you're going to see from the Catalyst study, diverse teams, and in particular having women on your tech teams, can raise your return on investment by up to 35% because you're getting those diversity of ideas. So let's take a look at some of the numbers. If you look today at women graduating from college, women hold a greater proportion of bachelor degrees than anyone else out there, than the men. But if you look at STEM careers, and I'm just going to take a look at computer science. Computer science, in 1984, there were about 37% of the graduates of computer science and tech were women. When I went to school, which was a little bit after that, I was sitting in the rooms thinking, my daughters will have more equality in these classes. But look at what's happened. 2012, 18% women. The percentage of women taking tech classes, not just a little bit, but a significant amount, which again, whether you're a daughter, whether you are a woman, whether you're a boss or a leader, this should cause you to go, oh my gosh, we've got to have more diversity in what we're doing. So if you look at it, in the workforce today, 48% of the folks in the workforce are women. Only 24% are in some sort of STEM career. In fact, many women who start with a computer science degree in a STEM career opt out because of the culture and they go into other things. And if you think about all companies today, you know that no company can be competitive without technology. So this is a skill that everybody needs. Now here's one of the most jaw-dropping charts to me. Today, if you look at venture capitalists, whether you're here in the great state of New York and New York City, whether you're in Silicon Valley or San Francisco, whether you're in India or London, only 6% of venture capitalists who fund entrepreneurs today are women. And that number has gone down over the last 5 years. But did you know that women entrepreneurs today are about 15% more profitable? Which you would think would mean there'd be more investment. But in fact, they're 40% less likely to get funded. Based on our research at IBM, is I really wanted to help you guys see some of the things that we could start to do to turn the tide. And in order to do this, we need to shift the way that we think. So I've got 5 career hacks that we've done based on our research, based on the numbers from Catalyst, from Women in Technology, from IBM and others, that say these things could make a difference and an impact. And so we're going to go through each of these 5. The first one is talking about acting like an open API versus hoarding your knowledge. The second one is being intentional about your social influence. That's social media. The third one is to win a hard sale to show your soft side. The fourth one is homework is not a moot point. And then we'll end with these breakaway relationships that you guys can have a major impact. Now, all of these apply to cloud, so you're here at the Cloud Expo. These are going to have an impact on our businesses as we move forward. So let's start with that first one, acting like an open API. So hopefully everybody in the room knows what an application programming interface is. It enables you to share expertise from a company. Well, what if everybody in the audience, everybody listening to this, started acting like an open API in terms of their technical skills and their business savvy? Did you know that girls and women who have a role model or a mentor who values technology both begin a STEM career and they stay longer in that STEM career? And so again, whether you're a man or a woman in the audience, every one of you can act like an open API and share that knowledge. Let's think about why that's not only valuable to girls and women, but it's also valuable to you. So if you think about a company, how many of you guys have companies that share the API? Raise your hands. Okay? We do at IBM, right? We have open APIs where developers can write to that open API. Why do we do that? Is it just out of the goodness of our heart? Sometimes, right? But most of the time it's about business. So think about why a company shares its API. First of all, the numbers show that if you open up your API, you have increased revenue in that product. And the reason is you have more reach. You have more people writing to that open API. And so you get more applications that sit on top of it, and you broaden the number of clients that you have. But in addition, you innovate more because when people write to that open API, they come up with things that you would never have thought were possible as they're using and leveraging that API. Now think about applying this to yourself and applying it to some subject matter expertise that you might have. Could be an infrastructure as a service, could be platform as a service, could be on Java, could be on Python. Think about sharing your subject matter expertise and the impact that it has. Now, on each of these, I wanted to tell you a little story, and this is a really interesting one that happened to me. One of my areas of expertise, in addition to cloud, is social media. And so I was going to Mumbai, actually to do a conference on social business, and before I went, I tweeted that I was going to be in Mumbai. And I left on the plane, 22-hour flight, and I arrive in Mumbai at the hotel, with my clothes wrinkled because it was a long flight. When I got there, the hotel general manager came up to me and he said, "Oh, Sandy, your group is waiting for you, but they got so big we had to move them to another room." And I was thinking, wow, that's really nice of the IBMers to show up at 11 p.m. to greet me at the hotel. So I checked in, I ran down to the room, I opened the door, and there's all this Bollywood music and dancing. I'm like, these are not IBMers. So I left and I went back to the general manager. I said, "Where is my group?" And he goes, "Oh, it's right there." So I vividly remember this. I open the door and I go back in with the general manager, And Anil, the president of the Social Media Club of Mumbai, comes running up to me. And he says, Miss Carter, how is your dog? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. My dog's doing great. How are your two daughters? I know you have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. Like, wow, they're doing great. So I'm thinking, how do I know this guy? Well, it turns out he had read my tweet. And so he figured out I was coming to Mumbai. And because I had skills, technical skills in social business, social media, he called IBM and said, we want some time with her. She was too busy. And so what they did is they called the hotel, found out when I was coming in, when I was going to check in, sent a note out to the Social Media Club of Mumbai, and 250 people showed up at my hotel at 11 p.m. at night. And so while I was there, he said, this is Anil, he said, Sandy, we're hoping that you're going to share your social media expertise with us. And I'm like, really? Like at 11 p.m. at night? These people are dancing. He's like, no, no, no. And he calmed everybody down. And until 2 in the morning, this is a true story, 2 in the morning, I shared what I knew and I took questions with that lovely group of 250 people until 2 a.m. in the morning. I won't tell you what I looked at like the next day. But think about that. How can you share your expertise to help encourage both people today and for the next generation about what you're passionate about? Again, whether that's a language or a technology, how do you leverage and use that to grow the business? So there's a couple things you can do. You can create a community. There's a young woman out in Silicon Valley that I just met, Sarah. She started a whole Ruby on Rails community. It's fast growing. It's now been picked up by TechCrunch. It's an amazing community. And she did that to share her expertise, to set an example to others. So how could you be a mentor in this area? How can you get started in this area? What expertise can you share? Because remember, especially for women and girls, having a mentor in this space really helps them to stay longer and to really be interested in what they're doing. So how can you act like an open API? Well, the first thing you need is you need subject matter expertise. What are people going to come to you about? What are people going to wait in a hotel in Mumbai at 11 p.m. to hear about from you? What is that expertise? Create that differentiated, what we call point of view or POV. And then share it. You could do a community like Sarah did with her Ruby on Rails community. You can write a weekly blog. But be a role model, be an example, give back. You know, one of my mentors at IBM, reach back and pull someone with you. And that's what acting like an open API can do for all of us and for that next generation of women and girls. Okay, so that's number one. Act like an open API. Everybody going to take that as an assignment? Awesome. Okay. Hack number 2, career hacks number 2, is around being intentional about your social media influence. Did you know today that of the Fortune 500 companies that they look at before they look at your resume, they go to your Facebook page, to your LinkedIn page to see what you have out on Tumblr? All of the Fortune 500 companies. So you might say, well, Sandy, that's just a big company thing. You know, we're all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs do the exact same thing. In fact, I would argue maybe even more so. So you need to be intentional about what you do on social to build your brand, but also, I believe, to help out others as well. Let me show you why. What's the business reason for doing this? So when I run a business at IBM, and I've run billion-dollar businesses at IBM, I always look at markets that are coming up, right? We used to look at the BRIC markets, Brazil, Russia, India, China. Look at this latest report I got. What's amazing about these 10 markets that are out there? They're all big markets for cloud, but 6 of the 10 are not geographies. 6 of the 10 business opportunities are social networks. And so as you're thinking about who you are and the businesses you want to build, if you're only thinking about this in terms of customer segments and geography segments, you need to broaden your aperture to consider the impact that occurs to your business if you choose to enter one of these social media markets as well. So let me tell you a story about how powerful this can be. I was tweeting again that I was going to London By the way, I don't tweet before I go somewhere anywhere now. But at this time, I did. This is a great story because the chief marketing officer of a large financial institution tweeted me back and said, wow, if you're going to be in London, I'd love to have 3 or 4 hours of your time. Now, this company was not an IBM client at the time. So, of course, I said, yes, sign me up for that meeting. So we went to the meeting, and again, we talked about the cloud, we talked about social, we talked about technology. It was a 4-hour meeting that led to a very large multi-million-dollar deal. As we're walking out of the meeting, we have IBM executives or sales reps, and there was a sales rep with me, and he said, you know, I just want to ask you one question to the CMO of this large financial customer. He said, you know, I called you and tried to get on your calendar, and I emailed you, and you never returned my email. I'm just curious, you know, why did you take a meeting with Sandy? Is it because she's from the U.S. and we're here in London? And the guy said, can I be really honest with you? He said, yeah. And he goes, well, here's what happened. I got your email, and I got your voicemail, but when I went and checked on what you did socially, did you have a blog? Were you writing about something? Were you out there on LinkedIn? By the way, you haven't updated your LinkedIn profile in 3 years. He said, I thought, what could I learn from you? And therefore, I didn't return the old-fashioned email or voicemail. I went for the later forms of communications. And this happens to all of us, right? How many times before you meet somebody, you Google them, right? Do you Google them? Absolutely. Do they Google you? Absolutely. So they're learning information about you, and you need that information to be intentional and essential about who you are. Now, how does this fit into getting more girls and women into STEM? Well, the numbers I just showed you, I think, are aha numbers. And they require that all of us join together to change that, because it's not just a nice thing. It's not just flowers and roses that we're talking about here. These are business issues. We're raising innovation. We're raising return on investment when we have diverse teams. So I just wanted to give you 2 great examples. Roberto Villa was tweeting the other day and was talking about why women are missing out and some of the attributes of what's happening to raise the awareness. Roger, who's in the back of the room, he introduced me. Think about the vision of Roger and Carmen having as an opening keynote some of these issues about STEM. So if they didn't do it, who would do it? So think about what you have, user groups, meetups. Maybe you have a tech boot camp. What are you doing here? NASA, for instance, recently when they hold their hackathons and their challenges, they now do a Women of Data and a Women of Cloud Day before they start in order to have an impact and a difference here. So I ask all of you who are part of a company, maybe you're entrepreneurs, I ask all of you, what are you doing to imitate what we've seen from Roger and Carmen here at Cloud Expo? Roberto, who's just leveraging his tweets. What are you guys doing to change this equation using that social media influence? So social media checklist here for all of us. One is to be active. Make sure that you know that when you're out there in social and you're tweeting things or you're Facebooking or LinkedIn, other people are watching it. Be consistent. Make sure that you're consistently out there and know what your score is, i.e. whether that's cloud or cred, or make sure that you're making an impact in the right areas. So if you care about STEM and you care about innovation, make sure that that's where you're spending your time and you're really creating your brand. So that's our number 2 career hack, is really to be intentional about what you're doing socially. And I would ask you all to make sure that you raise the awareness, either from some of these facts or come up and talk to me later, get whatever you need to raise the awareness and take action in this area of STEM. Okay, our 3rd career hack, which is kind of a little bit different than the norms that are out there today. How many times have you heard someone, or you've said yourself, it's not personal, it's business? Anybody heard that or said that? Yeah. It's not personal, it's business. But you know what? Business is personal. And in order to do great things, you need to be personal. You need to show your soft side. You need to show that you care about people, not just to get something back, but in order to give. And I know it seems counterintuitive, but let me just show you some interesting factoids of why it matters to you. Did you know if you go looking for a job, 70% of the jobs today are filled not by a resume or even looking at your great LinkedIn profile. They're filled by networking. You know somebody who knows somebody, and they'll vouch for you. Now, when they vouch for you, it's probably not just because of your skills. It's because of something about you as a person. In fact, one of my great mentors said, people will forget what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And so what I ask you here is, how are you showcasing that soft side? And showing that soft side could help a young girl or a woman to take that next step or to get the right advice that she needs. And as the other examples, what I wanted to do here is to showcase for you guys an example. I was asked to take over this team, and this particular team was not performing well, and they didn't have really good morale. Usually the two go together. And so one thing I learned right away is that the team wasn't communicating. And so the first thing I did is I started doing a weekly huddle or a scrum session so we could get together and kind of work through issues. But then I also noticed that individually, different people on the team really weren't motivated. So I was trying to figure out how could I motivate them. Well, I love quotes, as you probably have told so far, because I've given you a couple quotes already. I love quotes. They're very inspirational to me. So I decided for my whole team, every Monday morning, the team would walk in to their offices. This was at a time when we didn't have open spaces, but doors. Would walk in and they would find a quote from me that was very specific for them. Very specific for them. So I did this for 3 weeks. I thought it was going really well. It took me a lot of time. I mean, think about it. I had 15 people on my team, and I did a quote for them every week that was specific for them. After 3 weeks, one of the gentlemen on the team, he was 6'4". Now, I'm 5'8", but he's 6'4", so he's pretty tall, pretty big guy. He comes into the office, and he slams the door, and he says, "I need to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "We don't like the quotes." I said, "Okay, well, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to sit down and talk about it?" "No, I do not." "Stop doing them," and he walked out. Like, okay, this is interesting. So I'll fast forward a little bit. We did end up turning the team around. I decided not to stop doing the quotes. I wanted to do them. Why? Well, he told me that the quotes were girly girl. Well, I am a girly girl. So I decided, well, I could go ahead and do the quotes. And I thought that they would make a difference. I wanted to show that soft side of who I was, because everybody else is taken, right? All I can be is me. And so I continued to do it. We turned the team around. I actually ended up getting the People Manager of the Year award that particular year. Now let's fast forward 15 years. I get invited to a retirement party. And it's this guy, the 6'4" guy who slammed the door. It's his party. And he only has a certain number of slots, so he invited me. I thought, well, he's pretty gruff. Maybe I was the only person that would come. So I showed up. I show up, and I'm sitting beside his wife. And I said, "Hi, my name is Sandy." And the second I said that, she goes, "Oh, you're the woman who did the quotes." "Oh, yes, you're right. I'm the woman." I said, "I'm so sorry. I know your husband hated those quotes." And she goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I know he didn't like the quotes." And she goes, "Did you know that he has a shoebox? And he kept every one of your quotes. And he has them in the shoebox." I was a manager for 3 years, so he has a whole shoebox full of quotes. In fact, his daughter thought it was so cool that he was keeping them in the shoebox that she bought him a non-cardboard box so that he could keep the quotes in them. So I thought, that's a big aha moment, right? Being true to yourself, showing your soft side, not just being business-oriented, and really reaching out to people, even though sometimes they don't seem receptive when they might really be. So let me just share one of my favorite quotes with you. One of the reasons I'm telling you stories here is I love this quote. And it says, "Tell me the facts, and I'll believe. But if you tell me a story, it will live in my heart forever." And that's one of the things I'm hoping happens today, is that these stories will keep resonating with you, and that it will compel you to take action in this really important area of helping these next folks out. And let me tell you why. So there's a lot of men in the room, and we really do need men as allies. Today, with so many men in tech, in order for women to succeed, in order for more girls to go here, we need you. And so let me just tell you a quick little story. I was talking about my kids, I guess, too much. One of my peers told me that anyway. He said, all you do is use analogies about your kids. Can't you do something? Can't you use some other analogy? And so I said to him, oh, you mean like all your football analogies, right? Because all he uses is football analogies. And so he goes, yeah, like that. And I said, well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You only give analogies about your kids for the next week, and I'll only do football analogies. And he started laughing. He's like, what do you know about football? For sure, we'll do that. He didn't know my dad was a football coach, so I did know a little bit about football. But the real crux of the story is at the end of the week, he became an ally for me because he didn't realize what a difference changing his analogies would make to the women on his team. He didn't realize what an impact it would have to other dads in his team, and it made a big impact. And so when we got back together, I actually had an ally, and he had an ally, and he has been a tremendous champion now of girls and women in tech and in STEM just from that little example. So I challenge all of you, are you a man who is an ally in this area? Again, do it for the good of your heart, but do it for the good of your business as well. It impacts your innovation, and it impacts your return on investment and return on an equity. So can you guys remember that? To be a man that's an ally and to help out another young girl or a woman that's in your company who may think differently, express themselves differently, help them to be heard, help them to express themselves as well. So, checklist here. There are lots of great classes out there today on collaboration, how to bring in diversity. Men, as a checklist for you guys, we need you as allies. If you're a woman, who are your men that are allies for you at your company? Find those people and bring them on board with you to support the efforts that you might have. And then I would also say show a personal interest. Really act on it and don't expect anything in return. Make sure you're doing it just for good of doing that particular area. Okay, so that's our third area. Show your soft side. It's okay to show your soft side. It really does have an impact on overall morale and employee engagement. Okay, so we've just got a couple more hacks that we're going to go through. So far, you guys, does this make sense to everybody? Yes? Okay. And guys, you still with me? I didn't see a bunch of you run out of the room, so I really do appreciate that very much. Okay. So let's talk about our fourth hack. And I really like this one. How many of you guys know what a MOOC is? Raise your hand. Okay, unless everybody didn't raise their hand. So a MOOC is a massively open online course. It's a great new way to get educated and to get skills. In fact, if you looked at LinkedIn today and you looked at the certifications that are listed, I don't know if you know this, but MOOCs are number 2 in the way that certifications are listed, the way that people talk about their skills, whether that be a technical language skill, a management skill. MOOC certifications are now number 2 on LinkedIn, and the prediction is within 1 year, they will outpace any other type of certification that is listed on LinkedIn. And a lot of that's driven by millennials who are looking to change their skill sets on a really rapid basis. They can't always go back to school, so they're using MOOCs to do that. So I use it here as kind of a play on words. Homework is not a moot point or a moot point as you go forward. And let me tell you why. And I think this is really interesting, and for all of you guys out there who are mentors, I think this is really important. We, at the end of last year, did a study, and we wanted to look at how do people become more successful entrepreneurs? How do they become more successful in the company that they're in? What are the elements that really make a difference? And what we found is that there were primarily 3 biggies. The first one was on your ability to collaborate with others. How are you able to get work done in a great collaborative setting? So showing some of that soft side. The second one is around your personal leadership capabilities. Are you able to lead? Because everybody, whether you're a manager or not, you're leading in some regard, whether that's on your particular subject matter expertise. But in the center, the biggest way that entrepreneurs are successful, that people in companies are successful, is that they have these skills that are meaty skills. And in fact, the survey showed that there's skills on running a P&L, financial skills, understanding the direction of where something's going, strategic skills. In fact, right before this, Carmen, who is the CEO of this Cloud Expo, she's shifted the conferences because she strategically looked at what's most important, and that's helped her to be successful as she's gone forward. So those strategic skills. And then, of course, we also look at those really strong business skills. Now, this is important because those three different areas, if you think about the ways that men and women are being mentored, so how are we helping them do their homework? It's really different. In fact, there's something called the missing 33%. And there's a great TED Talk on this, if you want to go listen to the whole thing, that I find fascinating. And what this missing 33% shows is that of those three skills we talked about, peer collaboration, personal leadership skills, and understanding the business, the strategy. If you look at the way that women get mentored, on average, most women get mentored in peer collaboration and personal leadership. That's where their mentors spend time with them. How do you do these things? About 80% of the time, mentoring women is spent on those two elements. Now, men, how do you think men get mentored? 80% of the time for men is spent on strategy, financial implications, business acumen. And only 20% of the time is spent on their own personal leadership and their own collaboration. Now, when I went through this study, I thought, wow, this is a real big aha moment for me. As a mentor, I started looking at the way that I mentored. I have both men and women who are my mentees. How do I mentor them? And I'm now going to be purposefully mentoring them a little bit differently, talking to them about the business side, not just about their personal leadership and what they're doing. So I challenge each of you. Are you mentoring? How many people in here are mentors? Mentor someone else. Okay, so think about if you're not mentoring someone, you really need to be mentoring someone. But if you are, think about when you mentor men and women, do you mentor differently? And regardless, are you looking at this really important missing 33% so that you can be a great mentor to them and help them to be successful? So I wanted to show you, tell you another story. This is about, I just learned this story from one of my business partners who is the CEO of Xamarin. Do you guys know Xamarin? They're a company in the mobile space. They're doing a lot of stuff to help a lot of developers who were in C# move over to the cloud world for mobile. Well, I thought this was a really great story because he has a sister. And as his sister was growing up, she was constantly being mentored that her communication skills and her collaboration skills were great. And so what she did right out of college, while he went to MIT to study coding, she went to get her communications degree. So she ended up working for a communications company. She was successful, but really wasn't happy. And so she decided, well, I'm going to quit this and I'm going to go do something else. And her mentors talked to her about, wow, you're a good baker. You should open a bakery. And so she did. She came to New York City and opened her business. And as she opened her business, one of the things she found is that she wasn't spending a lot of time baking. She was spending a lot of time looking at the numbers, finance, strategically, where was she located? And she was looking for a program to help her run her business even better. And so with the coaching and the advice now of her new mentor, which was her brother, the CEO of Xamarin, she decided to go back to a coding school in Flatiron here in New York City. She aced the school. Her brother told me that she was calling him at 3 in the morning in California time, getting advice and counsel on being a coder. And now she has a fabulous job here in New York City at a great company, being a great programmer. I tell you that story because the way she was mentored growing up was all about her communication skills, her collaboration skills. She had all this talent in math and computer science that nobody was bringing to the surface. So I just challenge you to think about that story and how you can bring this alive and encourage young girls and women to consider this great career. So here, what's the checklist? Well, do you do a skills assessment? You know, we talked about the MOOCs. Skills are changing so fast, right? When I grew up, Java was the #1 programming language. Now, #1 programming language in school. Anybody know what it is? Python. Python is #1 today in schools, universities coming up. So I went out to a MOOC. I'm going to learn Python because I want to be cool too. But what do you want to do? What are the skills? And do you encourage your mentees to evaluate their skills? Prepare, make sure you're ready, and set stretch goals. All the books will tell you that here with homework that if you set a stretch goal, you'll do better than if you just set an average goal as you move forward. So that's our fourth area. Homework is not a moot point. And I try to show you the differences between men and women and mentoring and how we all can help this group really to grow by encouraging them in those three core areas: strategy, business acumen, and the financial areas. Okay, you guys ready for number 5? Number 5, and our last hack, is around lifelong relationships. And I think this one's really important because a lot of people grew up with the assumption that relationships are transactional, meaning I'm going to do something for someone, and if they do something back for me, then that's a good transaction. But that's really not a great relationship. It doesn't stand the test of time. And in particular, as we're looking for differences between men and women, we find that more men are developing these long-term relationships in business versus women. And so this is another area that we need to really look at. So let me just talk to you a little bit here about these lifelong relationships. So another story. I was going to a conference like this, and we had as one of our guest speakers Jeffrey Gittimore. Do you guys know Jeffrey? He's from New York City. He has written more best-selling business books than any other person in the world ever, and he's still writing business books. His most famous was called The Little Red Book of Sales. He does a lot on social and selling and really how to negotiate. And so this conference was a technical conference, and we had a group of people like this, and no one was sitting on the front row. So I really appreciate all you guys sitting on the front row. No one was sitting on the front row. So I decided to go up to the front and sit on the front row. He was fascinating. He's a riveting speaker, very New York, like total New York. And as I was sitting there, I started tweeting what he was saying because he had some really great little things. So after his presentation, he hopped down off the stage, which I can't do today, but he hopped down off the stage, and he ran up to me, and the guy sitting next to me said, "He's going to be mad because you were doing your mail the whole time he was speaking." And I was like, oh. So he runs up to me. The first thing I said to him was, "I wasn't doing my mail. I was tweeting." And he goes, "Oh, I know, because I have a little dashboard that I sit on the thing, and I can see the tweets, the positive, the negative, the sentiment, and I adjust my talk based on that, and you were tweeting away, so thank you." He said, "I just wanted to come and meet you." And I said, "Oh, that's great, thank you." And we exchanged cards. Well, the next day, I get my email, and the subject line, you get, 750, 1,000 emails a day. The subject line said, "Holy wow." So I had to open it. It was from Jeffrey Gittimore. Holy wow. What was holy wow? So I opened it up, and he shared some information that he thought would be valuable for me. And we went back and forth doing that. Do you know I've written now 4 books? He mentored me on 2 of those books. Again, this is the best-selling author of more business books in the world. So my first book on SOA, the technical, he helped me to write that. He helped me to figure out how to write that book. And from sitting on the front row and doing things for him, not because I expected something from him, but to develop that lifelong relationship, has resulted in me becoming a best-selling author with books translated in 19 different languages. So I challenge you, how are you looking at your relationships? Are you looking at them as a lifelong relationship or as something that, is just fly-by? So let me give you another story. This is my daughter and my husband. This is my 16-year-old. So one day I got a note from a math teacher. Now, see, I majored in math and computer science. So I'm really excited when my daughters do great at math. And so I got this note from the teacher, and they had selected her for this particular math class. So I was really jazzed. But my daughter comes home, and she's like this. And I was like, well, what happened today? I thought she was going to come home going, woo, I got selected for the special math class. And she said, Mom, I will do anything you want if I don't have to take that math class. I will do your laundry. I'll cook the dinner. She doesn't know how to cook, but she's going to do anything to get out of this math class. Now, isn't this sad? Isn't this sad? I thought, I can't believe this. So I said, well, you're going to take the class. but tell me why you don't want to do it. And so she started telling me, look, she's only one of 2 girls in the class, and there was a bunch of people in the class that weren't cool. And the teacher really wasn't cool, right? She said he graduated in the Stone Age, probably about my age, I'm sure. And so I thought, you know what? I need to help her develop a lifelong relationship with somebody. I need a mentor who's cool. So I went out there and I looked at all the math teachers at the school, and guess what? There was one super cool, young woman math teacher. So I went to her and I said, would you mentor my daughter? Would you, and she said, oh, I'm too busy. So I went 5 times. The 5th time she said, you're not going away, are you? I said, I'm not. I said, she has potential. I really want her to get going. And so she started mentoring her, and at the end of the year, in fact, I'm going to give you guys a link to a free book called Geek Girls Are Chic. In there, my daughter actually read a little story about why she didn't want to take the math class and how this mentor, who really said the same things I did, but in a cooler fashion, I'm sure, really changed her life, really made an impact and a difference. And guess what? Now that my daughter's going to the next grade, she's told her that she's going to stay in touch with her, and she wants to mentor her throughout her college career. Isn't that awesomely cool? So can you do that? Can you be a mentor like that? And can you really make an impact? Now let me show you something else that I think is a really interesting thing. Media. I went and worked with some folks in the Professional Legal Association and some folks in the medical area. And I think you guys now know that women and underrepresented minorities are entering those fields in equal numbers to majority and to men today. So law degrees and medical degrees are really having an influx. And I asked those 2 groups, what did you do to change the tide? Because women weren't wanting to become doctors. They weren't wanting to become lawyers. What did you do? And one of the things they told me that they did was that they changed the impact of media. They tried to lobby to get great shows on TV that showed strong women, strong minorities in positions that were really kind of cool. And so one of the things that I want to challenge you guys to do, and one of the things that we're trying to do, which is to lobby for more stronger women in technical roles, is to choose what you watch, to choose what you show your kids, to choose what's on TV. So, for instance, Mad Men. Now, I do like Mad Men, but when you watch Mad Men and you see women who are in the tech area, they're all sitting behind the glass. They actually look like kind of secretaries sitting there. Now, compare that to CSI Cyber. Have anybody seen that show? Patricia Arquette, CSI Cyber. The leader of the cyber crime division is a woman. On the team is a very diverse team. You've got minorities, you've got women, you've got young and old. I mean, it's a great diverse team. It's a great way to showcase what's really gone on out there. In fact, Patricia from the show has gotten so many young girls who now want to do cybersecurity because of her role model that she's now taking up a big activist role in this particular area. And did you guys know that in the last year, one of the areas in technology that has caught up to equality is cybersecurity? And think about the relationship that's formed here over time. So it's more of a lifelong dream. Now, many of you guys raised your hands, and you are dads of daughters. Let me tell you, if you guys are active, this is from the latest research that has just come out, if you guys are active with your young daughters, they're twice as likely to stay in school, and they score higher in every aspect of STEM. They show more interest in STEM and more potential in STEM because they have the support of the father. It makes a huge difference. One of the things that we started when Roger introduced me, I kicked off something at IBM called the Super Women's Group at IBM. We've got 38,000 women in this group. But we also recruited a whole set of men who are fathers, who could also have an impact on the pipeline and the next generation. So don't underestimate your role as father of a daughter, dad of a daughter. It's so critically important in this particular area for encouraging those young girls to do what they can possibly do with their potential in these particular areas. Okay, so here, great advice is, obviously to network, be inclusive as you're networking and as you're meeting people. Create a career advisory team. If you're a woman, if you're a company and you want to be successful, you create a board. And on that board, you have people who have skills in marketing and technology and sales. Well, as a woman, when you want to do great things, you need that same advice and counsel. Not all women, some men, hopefully men as allies, and women on that board who can be your career advisory board to help you to take that next step. And then the last one, I know my husband is such a champion for my two daughters. He tells them that they can do anything they want. My dad, I used to go for walks in the woods, and I would hear birds singing, and he would tell me, they're singing because they know that you're good in math. And I believed him. So what can you do to create that atmosphere for your daughter, to show interest in your daughter, to show interest in some of these areas? And you may need to encourage her and ask her that question that I had to ask my daughter, why don't you want to be in that AP math class? Why don't you want to go to that coding school? And if the reasons are not good, encourage that particular child in a better spot. Okay, so at the end, I really wanted to summarize your actions, because you didn't know that in the opening keynote of Cloud Expo, you're going to get homework, but you are. So number one, I want everybody in this room and the overflow rooms, one, to share your expertise. I know all of you are so talented. Figure out what that is, share that expertise, and be a mentor. Be a mentor, and if you can choose an underrepresented minority or woman to add as one of your mentees, that's extra credit. Use social to raise awareness. So leverage your LinkedIn, your Facebook to raise awareness of this issue, because that's one of the first ways that this gets attention. 3, men as allies. Men, we need you. And if you're a man, we want you to be an ally for women. Encourage the next generation and the current one. And if you're a woman, find those men who can act as allies for you as well. That missing 33% to me was a big aha. Make sure as you're mentoring folks and you're talking, and even for yourself and your skills, you're looking at that financial area, the business acumen area, and that strategic area as well. And then 5, be a lifelong sponsor of someone, and make sure that you're helping us in what you choose to watch on TV and how you choose to represent that to your daughters. Now, I told you I had written 4 best-selling books. I wrote a 5th book. It's called Geek Girls Are Chic. We are not charging for this book. I wanted to give back, and IBM as my company wanted to give back. And so you'll see up there on the slide, there's a URL. You can get printed copies for your company if you want to, but we would love for you to take that and use it. It has all the factoids that I showed here, the research that backs up why these recommendations can really make a difference. And if I can ever do anything to help any of you guys in this space, I'd be more than willing to do that. And thank all of you for being active, engaged participants in this opening keynote on Geek Girls Are Chic. Thank you.